Hello students, welcome to week 4 of the course. Going to kind of just give a little snapshot overview of week 4 first, and then after I do that I want to go into chapter 6, which is I think a very important chapter, and it's a very good time for this chapter because what I'd like for you to do is try to incorporate some of the techniques and some of the moves from this chapter into this next writing assignment week. So let me just get started here. So as you all know, we have online meeting scheduled for this week. So you come into the time of your meeting, you come into the Canvas course, and you click on this link right here to get into the meeting. Okay, so that's the first thing. That's important. But if you haven't done so yet, please make sure that you get your meeting scheduled with me. And I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record with this, but there's still a handful of students that have not scheduled your appointments with me. So please get those done right away. Okay, so the other thing here, I'm just going to go down through the readings, but I wanted to show you something that I'm not sure that you all picked up on, because I made a comment about it to one student, and it seemed like that student didn't know what I was referring to. So anyways, here are the readings for week 4. So you have chapter 6 this week, which is titled Skeptics May Object. And then you have the readings from the second part of the book is Michael Pollan, Escape from the Western Diet, and that begins on page 624. So for your second writing assignment, you have the option to choose from either this reading, the Michael Pollan, Escape from the Western Diet, or Michaela Cullington's Does Texting Affect Writing? Okay, so you have the choice to do that. If you haven't done so yet, I would recommend that you make that choice soon and get started on the paper. Okay, so those are the readings for this week. These are the lecture points here, and these lecture points, they're in here as just little kind of like numbered and sometimes bulleted points with some odd objects and mixed in there here and there. That's because that these lecture points are actually links to outside notes. So you'll see like a numbered here, for instance, nothing numbered and highlighted or on number 1, but number 2 you see here, if this is a hyperlink, if you click on this, it actually opens up the lecture slide here, so you can get a little bit more detail here. So I'd recommend taking advantage of that, and it just opens in a new window, so when you're finished with that, you can just close it out. You're right back to where you started here. So these are the lecture notes. Make sure that you go over these in detail, because there is a lot of important information here regarding this chapter 6, most notably, which I'm going to go over here in a second. Okay. No weekly check-in needed this week, so you don't need to do that discussion check-in this week because we are meeting online. So I wanted to make that clear right up front. No discussion check-ins here, and that's why you'll see this when you click on the actual discussion for this week. You don't need to do it. Then the big thing you have to submit this week is, of course, the writing assignment number 2, and you can see the prompt here that write an essay in response to one of the authors that you have read, either Texting Affect Writing, Cullington, or Escape from the Western Diet, Michael Pollan, which is the reading for this week. This is important here, that you both agree and disagree with some of the arguments. And this is where I would say it's key to use those templates from the textbook. That's really, really important for this week, is use the templates for agreeing and the templates for disagreeing. And you can even do agree but disagree. So although Cullington believes that texting does not affect writing, I disagree because X. Or I agree that we should follow a healthier diet, as Pollan claims. However, I disagree that fast food is the reason that many Americans are obese, something like that. Okay, so you get the point, but you're gonna definitely both agree and disagree. So it's more than just summary of these authors' work. It's more than just agreeing with everything that they say, but it's finding some components of their arguments that you agree with and some that you disagree with. Okay, so that's really important. Really important. You're going to have to look sometimes. Sometimes you have to dig a little bit for this one, but I think it's really important that we are able to articulate both agreeing and disagreeing with others. Okay? So I am going to go back out here to the Home tab, and I want to just kind of touch a little bit on this chapter 6. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but what I'll do here is I'm going to give kind of a nice brief overview of this chapter 6, and then kind of an overview of the of Escape from the Western Diet, Michael Pollan's piece. And then if you have questions about this, of course you have the lecture notes. If you have questions about it, in addition to my kind of brief overview here and the lecture notes that are up there, we can always talk about it when we meet this week as well. Okay? So what is chapter 6? Well, the title of it, as I said, is Skeptics May Object. Planting a naysayer in your text. And the authors of this, Graff and Birkenstein and Durst, in chapter 6, they start out here by kind of giving us this kind of scenario of this author who is really in this dire strait because, after weeks of writing in her text, she comes to realization that she hasn't yet thought about what her skeptics are going to say about her. So what her critics are going to say about her. So she kind of has a panic. But working through this in her own head, and as explained to us, is that this author then comes to the realization, you know what? This is okay. It's good that I understand what my critics are going to say. Okay? And here I want to just read something briefly from the textbook here. So in relation to that, remember, we are writing, academic writing is argumentative by its very nature. That's according to the authors, and I happen to agree with that, as well as many others do. If academic writing is indeed argumentative, that means that we're probably going to have people that disagree with what we say, right? It's going to be controversial. We're going to have those that don't agree with us, right? And that's good. That's okay. That's healthy. It's good. But what we should not do as writers, and this is really the heart of what this chapter is getting at, we should not act like those other points, those other views, those other opinions, our critics, our skeptics, we should not act like that they don't exist. In other words, we shouldn't just write our paper and not give any kind of credence to objections to what we're writing. Okay? So if you think about a good debate, a person that is a good debater is not someone who can just know, everything that he or she needs to know in a vacuum and be so good at, the facts of the situation or the debate topics. But someone who knows the facts, knows how to speak well, but also knows how to respond to the critics. Right? Because that's really what a debate is all about. It's being able to respond to those who are questioning us. Okay? So that's really what this is all about with the academic writing piece. And then here the authors state, as we argue throughout this book, writing well does not mean piling up uncontroversial truths in a vacuum. Okay? Not just what we believe, in other words. It means engaging others in dialogue or debate, not only by opening your text with a summary of what others have said, as they suggested in chapter 1, but also by imagining what others might say against our arguments as it unfolds. Okay? So that's really key to this, that in order to be good academic writers, we have to, again, remember going back to the introduction, understanding, knowing our audience, okay? And in the process of knowing our audience, a key component to that is knowing what they may object to in terms of our views, our claims, okay? So we have our firm belief about something. What what are our anticipated skeptics going to say about us? Okay, and then this, in addition to understanding that, because it's easy to understand that yes, I'm writing about this controversial topic, and there are going to be others that object to it, of course. But going beyond that, okay, after you have that foundational understanding, going beyond that to really integrating someone else's view into your academic writing. Okay, and not just integrating it into and giving it like a surface, I understand that there may be others who object to this, but actually spending a little bit of time on that objection. Okay, spending time on the objection, on the skeptic, on those that are questioning, and then responding to that objection. Okay, and that's where you're going to use your own creative, unique way to do that. Okay, this chapter gives us some really good examples on this. The Kim Chernin example is a really good one. This is a woman who has done a bunch of writing about weight and image and the female image and weight gain, weight loss, those kind of things. She actually dedicates an entire chapter in her book that is referenced here in this chapter on skeptics. And it's really cool how she does it, because she does it by being her own skeptic. So it's really cool. So you can see that's on page 79 of the textbook. But she starts it off. I'll just read a sentence or two here. Chernin says, at this point, I would like to raise certain objections that have been inspired by the skeptic in me. Okay. She feels, again, this is Chernin, she feels that I have been ignoring some of the most common assumptions we all make about our bodies, and these she wishes to see addressed. For example, you know perfectly well, she says to me, that you feel better when you lose weight. You buy new clothes, you look at yourself more eagerly in the mirror. When someone invites you to a party, you don't stop and ask yourself whether you want to go. You feel sexier. Admit it. You like yourself better. This is from Kim Chernin, The Obsession, and this is her chapter on the skeptic. Okay. Again, she is being her own skeptic in this. Okay. All right. So basically, in a sense here, then, chapter 6 really kind of introduces us to a different sort of they say. Really, in a sense, it's the naysayer. Okay, so what is they say? In this, it's the naysayer is a they say. Okay, unlike the traditional, typical they say, which appears early in the paper. This is what I made comments on in your on your paper's first writing assignment, where I was saying introduce the issue, introduce the author, and then your response to the author as your thesis statement. So that kind of they say appears early in the paper. And that kind of establishes your conversation with the writer. The naysayer appears later, after you, the writer, has made some of your arguments and begins to imagine possible objections to them. Okay, so that they say, the naysayer comes later, after you establish already some sort of argument, that you are establishing your own argument, your claims here. Okay. The authors recommend, and I'm reading this from the textbook, staying with a naysayer discussion for a few sentences or a full paragraph. This is what I was referring to when I said don't just, give it little to no credence by just mentioning that, oh yes, there are objections to this, that kind of thing. So this is, the authors are saying, staying with the naysayer, giving it some time in discussion for a few sentences or a full paragraph in order to treat that point of view fairly. And then they even suggest labeling naysayers, and you'll see that stuff in the book, such as liberals or feminists or conservatives or Christians, those kind of things. So pay attention to that labeling piece in this chapter as well. Okay. Okay, so that's all I wanted to cover for chapter 6. Of course, I said it's an important chapter, but I don't want to spend too much time on it, but it's very important. Read it. Look at the templates for this chapter. Really important to integrate those into one of your writing assignments, or to the writing assignment, either one of those options that you choose, either Pollen or Collington. Okay. So speaking of pollen, this essay it's titled "Escape from the Western Diet," and in this essay, Pollen basically opens with it's the concluding section of the readings piece to this book. And that section is called An Eater's Manifesto. Pollen argues that a focus on single nutrients, what he calls nutritionism, it actually impedes an accurate, comprehensive understanding of healthy eating. He says the only solution to Americans' eating problems, he argues, is to stop eating a Western diet. So first, it's very important to understand what Pollen is referring to here when he speaks of the Western diet, and then to see how your understanding of the Western diet is either in alignment with or different from Pollen's understanding of it. Okay, so creating a low carbohydrate or low fat diet, including low-fat foods, does nothing to improve the Western diet, and both the food and medical industries benefit from competing scientific theories about nutrition, Pollen says. But he goes on to say instead, he suggests that we avoid processed foods when possible. So what are processed foods? Okay, he avoids processed foods when possible. And he also claims, or goes on to say, that a healthier environment, overall a healthier eating environment, living environment, might lead to a healthier food options and such. So if you're in a neighborhood where there's a grocery store, and that grocery store has healthy food options, organic, more whole foods, natural foods, those kind of things, you're going to have a tendency to be able to sustain a healthier lifestyle versus living in an area where there is no option for a grocery store that has anything that is healthy. Maybe there aren't any, maybe there's no fresh produce. Maybe there aren't many grocery stores in your neighborhood at all. And maybe your diet consists, mainly of fast food. This is kind of what he's talking about with the environment. But basically, he concludes this chapter by reminding readers of his credo. And I think you'll catch this, and I think you'll probably, it'll pop up if you decide to go this route with Pollen's piece. His credo is eat food, not too much, mostly plants. Okay? All right, that's it. Make sure that if you have any questions about any of this stuff, you get in touch with me early on in the week. And just to remind you about the student appointments here. Again, you're going to, after you scheduled on your day, your time, you come in, get in on Canvas here. Because me going in to a link within Google, within Gmail, because the Google Meet features in there, it doesn't have some of the features that we have built into this one here. And this seems to go a lot more smooth when I'm working with students. So make sure that you get in here. Preferred is that you're on a laptop, but if you have to be on a phone or something, that works as well. Okay, so that's how you're going to get into it. Just make sure that's really important. You get into it right from here. The other thing is that make sure that you are ready to discuss your paper, your first writing assignment. If you have any questions, any concerns, something you think maybe I missed completely, and a comment that I made that makes absolutely no sense. I definitely make mistakes. I'm human. But come prepared to talk about those things. This is informal, guys. This is, this is going to be just us, really getting to chat with one another and to make sure that you are understanding what's required of you, and me getting to understand if you have any issues or questions, and I can help you out through this process. And then the other thing is, think about your service projects before we meet, because I really want to have some kind of plan on helping you to be able to finish your service project work. Okay, that is it. I hope you all have a good week, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.